All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show, where my voice is a little bit better, but it's work in progress. On this show, we look at last night's slate. We look at today's slate. Make sure we have a pretty good pregame on what's going on. And then, of course, on the pre-lock show, we go over leverage plays, core plays, guys are going under on, and really just how I'm utilizing the domination station that night. That show is for VIP members only, so feel free to use the promo code BOB if you want a 10% discount. If not, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. But yeah, guys, let's look at last night's slate. For me, it was a positive one. Thankfully, to this domination station, as a lot of you guys know, I wasn't really high on Julius Randle last night, but on my last run around like 650-ish, it just made Julius Randle a core play. And on the DFS, and on the, well, don't know what was going on there. Let me pull this up. And on the DFS Army website, I updated my core plays and added Julius Randle in there. And I had like 60-70% Randle, and he was only 8% owned. Like, that was mind-blowing. But thank you, Domination Station, and I'm very glad I did not over-tinker him out. So yeah, Julius Randle really saved my slate. Chris Dunn, we had a min percentage on. I don't think we had enough still, though, but it was good to have exposure. Kelly Oubre, I didn't have a ton of. He did enough, though, so that's what you needed. Torrin Prince wasn't a core play for me, but I did mention that once we got the news that Edwards was going to be out, Torrin Prince was the next guy up. We did put a min on him, but I still don't think we had enough to make it a great night over just a good one. Julius Randle, I talked about, probably the only, such a good play by the DS. I'm so glad that worked out. Joel Embiid, we had exposure to, but wasn't enough. Agbaji, we had a min on. Wish I had more. Terry Easton was a core play. Kelly Olynyk was close to a core play. So all in all, solid night. Definitely could have gone better if more of the leverage plays hit and if THT wasn't a piece of garbage. But, it happens. It happens. Thomas Dye, good to see you, man. You were ahead of the game on that THT piece. You were one of the first people who mentioned it. You were like, yeah, not on THT. So glad that worked well for you, man. All right. Let's jump into things. Let's start off with this first game. We have the Wizards against the Orlando Magic. The Wizards, Kristaps Porzingis is in, which means Kyle Kuzma's out. So there's some injury news here. We know when Kyle Kuzma's out, that makes this team more viable. For me, it means Bradley Beal is a leverage play. Hopefully he's not too popular tonight, so I can implement that. Denny Avdija, obviously, sees an increasing usage. His minutes are a bit more secure when Kuzma's out. We've seen this play out plenty of times this season. No one here, in my opinion, is a must play. Like, there's not a lock and load from this team tonight. But again, Beal and Avdija are more viable. You can definitely make a case for Porzingis as well. But the guys that I know that I want exposure to for sure tonight here is Beal. Avdija is just someone that I'm okay showing up in my lines due to the domination station. Sim Model likes Beal. I like Beal when Kuzma's out. Matchup against the Magic is not one to be afraid of. So a lot of things going for him. So that's my game plan there. Beal and move on. I'll look at Porzingis a little bit deeper too to see if we're missing something. Could be worthwhile, but prefer Beal if I have to choose one or the other. For the Magic, Suggs is out. Jalen Suggs. Jonathan Isaac's been out for a while now. Fultz, at this point, is a guy that we can never forget about. He has plenty of upside. 7K price tag is always worrisome for him. Wendell Carter Jr. is another guy that I always like to keep on my radar these days. He's been in really good form. I like his upside. Sim Model likes him a good bit, projects decently well. So as long as there aren't more centers that I gravitate towards, which is what usually happens. Wendell Carter Jr. is definitely one of those guys I'm considering having decent exposure to tonight. And again, for me, it always everything always revolves around ownership. So I really want to wait and see what happens there. Thomas, good to see you. Be Grateful said you signed up and you were banned. Oh, that's awful, man. DM me on Discord if you can. And I can connect you to the right people to make sure we get that fixed. I don't know if maybe you were in the chat saying some wild stuff potentially, but let me know. We'll figure it out. Wendell Carter rebounds. Yeah, he should see plenty of rebounds. The Wizards are not a great rebounding team, so that's another good spot for Wendell Carter Jr. Dave, good to see you, man. Appreciate your help and for checking in. You always saying your name always reminds me to say, like, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. It just kind of is one of the same at this point. But appreciate your help, man. And also, yeah, guys, if y'all could like and subscribe, that's always super helpful. We have a lot of really good content on our DFS Army website, and a lot of really good guys in the Discord giving advice. And on the channel, we have the props stuff going right now too. So a lot of really good resources available here. So yeah, for the Magic, Wendell Carter Jr. is definitely on my radar in full. It's the rest of these guys a little bit harder for me to make a case for. But yeah, just not super exciting, to be honest, for me. This game, this Pistons against the Hawks game, should be interesting. Looks exciting. But the spread is so freaking large. It's wild. It's large. It's wild. 14-point spread. Oh, man. It's a bit ridiculous. It's a bit ridiculous. Jay, do it, man. Do it. Quick two, man. Okay. All right, guys. So for the Pistons tonight, we have some injury news, which makes things a little bit more interesting. We have Jalen Duren out. Isaiah Livers is questionable. Alec Burks is out. RJ Hampton's questionable. Isaiah Stewart's been out. Bogdanovich has been out for a while. Diallo and Cunningham have been out for a while. Is interesting. Sorry, I saw a quick question. Keith said, hey, I'm new to this. How can I get on your Discord? On our DFS Army website, once you're a member, you can click the Discord button right here. And it'll give you instructions on that. But yeah, guys, the Pistons are interesting tonight because of so many guys who are out. We're used to this. Wiseman has been playing well. He's had a solid usage rate. He's had a solid rebounding rate. He's been in good form. Even when Bagley joined the starting lineup again, he was still playing well. Even in a difficult matchup against the Heat on Sunday. So definitely some things that is making it a little bit easier to play Wiseman. This matchup against the Hawks is super soft. Their front court, they can't stop anyone. So he should be able to have a strong performance here as long as he continues to be an offensive force and isn't too passive. So fingers crossed for that. Fingers crossed for relatively low ownership and people get scared of the blowout. If that's the case, I'll be over the field on Wiseman. If he's already really chalky, I'll be closer to field weight exposure. The other pieces of this game are a bit more volatile because of the blowout risk. You'll need, thankfully, they're not too expensive. These are guys outside of Wiseman. I'm not really planning on forcing exposure to anyone unless I just feel like they're criminally underowned, which I don't really foresee being the case. But if it is, we'll have to wait and see. Outside of that, I'll let the domination station kind of mix and match these guys. I'm not gonna try and force it with a men like I will with Wiseman. For the Hawks tonight, we have big news. DeJounte Murray is questionable. We know how much of a big deal that is. That's a huge boost to our guy Bogdanovich. We've seen him have some really good games in this spot. Also a nice boost to AJ Griffin. A better spot for Griffin if he starts, but I would assume it's Bogdanovich here. Of course, Trae Young would see a boost. Capella sees a boost. John Collins is someone that's hard for me to trust these days just because he's been splitting minutes with Sadiq Bey, but he's proven in some soft matchups he can definitely still have some upside and ceiling if he's very efficient with his minutes, but not a guy that I try to pick on too much these days from like a trying to force exposure to him kind of play. Jay said now on Prize Picks, the ones that are out, they are not in the lineups, right? Or they are. Jay, so I'm not a Prize Picks guy. This is for daily fantasy. On our main channel, they don't do live shows. They just post their props shows on there. So they'll be up on the website at some point, I'm sure, today. But yeah, for DFS, if DeJounte Murray plays, I'll be over the field on him. He will be a leverage play for me tonight if he plays. Thankfully, this is one of the earlier games, so we should get that news in time to make a decision on that, but we'll have to wait and see. So a lot will depend upon DeJounte Murray's status, but we should have that news in time where we don't have to play predictions. For the Cleveland Cavs, we have Jared Allen listed as questionable. I don't like picking on this Nets team too much these days, but this is a solid spot for Jared Allen if he plays. I would assume that he'll be relatively low owned because people will be nervous due to that questionable tag. So for me, I definitely have some interest in him. But again, we'll have to wait and see. If he's out, that interest does pivot to Darius Garland. We got that play right last time, which was nice. He does see an increasing usage with Jared Allen being out, but still the matchup's not my favorite, and I do feel like Darius Garland's priced appropriately, but the sim model does like Darius Garland tonight, so it definitely does make him slightly more interesting for me. Darius Garland is the only Cav outside of Jared Allen who might potentially not play that's on my radar tonight potential leverage plays, but again, we'll have to wait and see where ownership falls on these guys to really kind of lock those guys in, but they're on our radar. The Nets are tough, at least for me. Spencer Dinwiddie's been in solid form. He's been fantastic lately, but it's a little weird because they're facing the Cavs, who are a really, really good front court, but the Nets are a solid three-point shooting team these days. It becomes a little bit more complicated when you realize that Dorian Finney-Smith is listed as questionable. And then you realize that, Royce O'Neal might start, but that's also a boost to Joe Harris. And that's also a boost to guys like Watanabe. And of course, like a small usage increase for Bridges and Dinwiddie and Claxton. Ultimately, my full conclusion is that they're facing the Cavs. This is the lowest game total on the slate, so it's just not a game I'm trying to force exposure to. But if Bridges is super low owned and Cam Johnson are both like somewhere between like 1% to 5% ownership, then I'll consider them as leverage plays. If they're like 15% owned, which that would feel more appropriate to me, then I wouldn't try and force them in my lines tonight. Styles, good to see you. I don't know if you're looking for the prop show too, like a lot of people are. But this is for daily fantasy, and if that's the case, I'm glad to have you live, man. Michael Ortiz, good morning, man. Hope you're doing well. It's early. A lot of questionable tags today. So hopefully we get some of that news coming in here soon. Next up, we have the chalkiest team on the slate tonight. It's the Spurs, and I think we just got some Keldon Johnson news. Yeah, Keldon Johnson's now unlikely to play, so the team that was already going to be the super chalk on this slate is going to be 10 times more chalky than they were going to be previously. The reason for that is that Zach Collins, recent DFS monster, is out. So that provides a lot of minutes and usage in the front court. Devin Vassell, another high usage guy, is out. Jeremy Sachan, pretty high usage guy, out. Trey Jones, one of the Spurs starting guards, out. Devontae Graham, questionable. And then Bassey's been out. Kim Birch has been out. Doug McDermott's probable. A lot of potential injuries tonight. So definitely going to be a Spurs value slate. And with Keldon Johnson being out, it just becomes one of those situations where you can play pretty much whoever you want to from this team. I do want to see who starts. Typically, when Keldon Johnson's out, I pivot to Vassell and or Sachan and or Collins. But with them out, I'm going to need to run some numbers to see who really leads this team in usage. It'll be a pretty easy Devontae Graham play for me today if he wasn't questionable. So with him being questionable, I automatically, we already see like Sandro and Keita Bates-Diop are popping as extreme values on this slate for a good reason. I feel even better about it with Keldon Johnson now being unlikely to play. I think Romeo Langford could be a little sneaky here. I think Malachi Branham is close to I don't want to say close to a lot because the matchup's still pretty difficult against the Pelicans and the spread's still pretty wide. But Malachi Branham, if he's going to be the lowest owned Spur, like I don't want to forget about him at all. He's someone that I want to be over the field on. It looks like he's not projecting great right now, but I'm assuming that's because we have Keldon Johnson still in. So I like the Spurs, kind of like a lot of these slates. When there's a solid value team on the slate, you can kind of decide in two ways. You can be like, hey, I don't trust that value. I'm not going to play it, and I'm going to pivot and try and find other low-owned value options. Or you can do what I'm probably going to do and just kind of eat the chalk and try to find some sneaky plays in here that people are overlooking, but eating the chalk. And that's what I'm going to do here. Just because they're missing so many guys, I feel like it'll be a little silly to do the opposite. Oh man, I'm sorry to see that, Rez. Yeah, agreed. Let's change it. Let's get things moving in the right direction for you, man. TTX is Spurs plus 14.5. Good. I'm not a point spread guy, man. I'm a DFS guy, but yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't want to give you advice on that. JJ said Graham revenge narrative. No way he's going to be out. I hope you're right, JJ. I hope you're right, man. If he plays, like I said, I'm going to be over the field to him. That might be hard to do because he should be super popular tonight if he plays and starts, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's one of those tough questionable tags, like hard to, we just don't know what we don't know. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I was worried that yesterday wasn't going to be great, but the Domination Station saved me with Randall. It saved me so bad. So next up we have the Pelicans. The biggest concern with the Pelicans here is the blowout risk. Is 12.5, pretty widespread. Pretty good chance that this game does blow out. With that being said, though, this is a fantastic matchup for Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Giannis Valanciunas. Great spot for all of those guys. They're pretty healthy these days. Jose Alvarado's been out and Zion Williamson has been out for a while. So there's no dramatic usage increases for anyone outside of they all have fantastic matchups. The two guys I will prioritize, assuming that their ownership stays reasonable. And for me, that's like 20% or below. Or CJ McCollum and Giannis Valanciunas. CJ will for sure be a leverage play for me, which as a refresher, is just me making sure I'm going to be double the field on him. The blowout risk again does scare the living hell out of me, but if he's relatively low owned, I like his upside. The sim model likes him. The matchup's fantastic. I just hope he's low owned enough for me to be able to get some good leverage there. And then Joe Val is also inconsistent as all hell. And we know the volatility he brings to the table. I prefer to play Joe Val when Larry Nance Jr. is out because it does stabilize his minutes a little bit. But again, hopefully this is a good spot where we can get a triple-double out of him here. A lot of hoping going on there, but the sim model likes him. I like his price tag. He's not too expensive. Hoping he sees solid minutes. He's been productive while he's been out there. Hoping that ownership stays relatively low on them because of the blowout risk involved. So yeah, as of right now, I hate to say it, but this Spurs and Pelicans game is the one that I'll have the most exposure to. Again, things can change dramatically as the slate continues, but that's where I'm at for now. And then we have a healthy Celtics team. Like, what is this? Like, they had everyone questionable like all of last week, and now they're looking good. Marcus Smart not on the injury report. Robert Williams was not on the injury report. Al Horford not on the injury report. Peyton Pritchard has been out, and then Gallinari has been out for a while now. The biggest thing here for me when this team is healthy is that I usually don't like to deal with them too much. But it's hard to pass on teams who are playing this Kings team who haven't been able to stop anyone from a defensive standpoint. They basically let you score, they're going to try and score more. That sets up very well for a guy like Jason Tatum. Unfortunately, he'll probably be the chalkiest stud on the slate, which is usually not my play style, but it's hard to ignore a guy in this spot. Spread's relatively close. This is a back-to-back night for the Kings. They played yesterday, as most of you know. But I like the spot for Tatum. The other guys in this game, I don't really plan on having a lot of exposure to. You can make a case for Jaylen Brown. You can say, like, hey, I like this offense. I like this game environment. I think Brown has just as high a chance of having upside tonight as Tatum. For me, it's always hard for me to find a great case to play Brown, especially when he's 9K. It's a little bit easier when sometimes they have him a little bit closer to like the low 8K range. So Brown like definitely has some upside here still, as you can see in the 8X column. Like having a 0.1% chance of hitting 8X isn't fantastic. Like the sim model doesn't love Jaylen Brown, but it's still nice to see that percentage on him. Doesn't make him unplayable. But then you compare that to Jason Tatum, who has a 0.2% chance of hitting 8X. There's definitely a price difference involved. I just like Tatum's chances a bit more. But I'm thinking about it. I'm going to try and find a reason to make the pivot, but I don't think I'm going to be able to be honest. Outside of that, I'm not really a big fan of the others. But I'll let the domination station do what it wants to do with them. I'm not going to try to over tinker that situation too much. All right, for the Kings, guys, the biggest thing here is Kevin Huerter's health. We have seen that time and time again. I don't like the Kings when they're healthy. If they have someone out, I'm more willing to take shots on them. Yeah, I'm just more willing to take shots on them. So if Huerter plays, he's currently listed as TBD. If he plays, I don't have a lot of interest in this team tonight. You can talk me into Fox, but I doubt I'll have a lot of them tonight. At least I'm not going to force it. If Huerter's out, then more willing to take shots on the guys we talked about yesterday. More open to Fox, more open to Monk, more open to Barnes, Davis, the other streaky shooters on this team. But if they're healthy, it's not a spot I'm going to try and force. But still having some exposure to that game is nice. And the domination station is usually pretty good about giving me a little bit in situations like that. All right, last game on the slate, guys. We have the Thunder against the Clippers. For the Thunder, pretty boring here. Kenrich Williams is out. Poku's been out. Shet's been out. None of that really matters too much. The Clippers are no longer really scary team from a defensive standpoint. They've started to not be as strong there. But again, something worth looking into. SGA has been that guy. He's had a really strong year this year. 9,800 is not an unreasonable price tag. For me, when it comes down to SGA, I just care about his ownership. Sim Model's not the biggest fan of him tonight. And you all know I'm not really big on fighting the Sim Model if I don't have to. So the only reason that I would kind of force exposure to this situation is if he's extremely low owned. Just because of how dominant he's been this season, that's always just a great argument for me. Outside of that, like I said, they're pretty healthy. No one's really standing out for me too much. We have a lot of really good value in that Spurs game, and we'll probably get more of some of the other questionable tags we have, and hard for me to prioritize some of these other plays. Again, I say it all the time, I'm not taking these guys out of my player pool. I still want some exposure to them, like even if it's like 5-6%, just because it is the highest game total on the slate, but not an issue I'm going to try and force and fix myself. Last up, we have the Clippers. The Clippers are weird these days, man. I feel like we've had like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard as leverage plays, or at least guys that we have exposure men's on for a while now, and they've been coming through, which is weird because they usually don't come through for us. And so that kind of has me in this like weird feeling today, where it's like, all right, last game on the slate, Sim Model likes Kawhi Leonard and Paul George once again. I don't think they're going to be very popular. They're facing a really bad Thunder team. Highest game total on the slate. It just makes a lot of sense. And so, again, as long as ownership stays reasonable, and for me, reasonable is 10% or less, they're gonna be leverage plays again. Like Kawhi Leonard, totally fine putting a 20% min on him if he's like 5 to 10% owned. Paul George will probably be less popular than that because he's a little expensive at 9,300. But again, he's facing the god awful Oklahoma City Thunder. I can do like a 15% or 20 min on him too and feel really good about it. So for me, the way I'm thinking about this slate, I'm eating the Spurs chalk. I'm hoping to take some shots on some of the Pistons here for chalk as well. If DeJounte Murray's out, we'll have some Atlanta exposure as well. And I really like the Pelicans tonight. I like the Clippers, Stars, and I like Tatum. And then outside of that, I'm just going to let the Domination Station mix and match. And then once we get ownership, we'll find some low-owned leverage plays that we'll attack on the pre-lock show. But that's pretty much how I'm treating this slate, guys. I appreciate you all for sticking it out with me, hanging out with me on this show. But I look forward to digging deeper into things on the pre-lock show. Again, will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time and only for VIP members. So I'll see y'all then. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace out, guys. Bye.